started at Wesley from Mount Mary because my father was in the railway, and as you know, railway at that time, Mount Mary produced a lot of good cricketers. And from Mount Mary it was a very close walk to college, where I used to hear the college bell and then leave home, which was only about 4 minutes, 5 minutes maximum on a quick walk to college. And my days at Wesley were happy memories, where we had good teachers like in the caliber of Mr. A. Karatna, Mr. Pakinathan, Mr. Hensman, and we had a principal called Mr. S. Veerasinghe, who was an honors and a classic. He was known for his classics. You know, he came from Richmond. He was also a cricketer. And Mr. S. Veerasinghe was principal of Wesley for about 30 years, and he's put us into a solid foundation where discipline was very important. And my classmates at that time were mostly burghers. If I think of the years in the late 60s, we had classmates who were the Kretzers, the Van den Riesens, the Pereiras, the Kellers. There were so many burghers in the class, and most of them went to Australia or to even to countries like the UK and to the USA. But we are still in touch with them, and they are part of the OBUs in the world, especially Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. There are some also involved in the OBU still in London and also in the States. So we still keep a very close touch. In fact, in 2013 we had a back to school thing, and this was called Then and Now, which I chaired, and we were happy to have about 130 boys who came from about 10 different countries for this back to school event, where we invited teachers, and we had a 2-day program. Boys came from Australia, USA, Maldives. At that time we had a lot of Maldivians also studying in the college hostel. And when we counted, there were about 10 different countries that participated. So this bond that we had in college is still very strong, and we still maintain good contact, and it stands to the double glue that made this thing happen, and the saga still continues. My most memorable time in college was when I got into the senior classes, like in the O level, where I got into the cricket team, I was in the rugby team, and also I won the All Island Singing Competition in '69, organized by, at that time it was called Radio Ceylon, and Wesley, where I participated for college, came first. That was an important step in my life, where Mrs. Veerasinghe, the principal's wife, played the piano for me at Radio Ceylon, and the result was that I won the competition and then got into the choir. And at that time it was a very famous choir, which was also coached, or I would say trained by Mr. A. Karatna, who's still one of us who lives down Wellauta, right in front of St. Peter's College. He was an Orthonian who spent most of his years at Wesley, and then getting into drama for college, and also getting into the cricket teams, the rugby teams, the athletic teams. And in 1973, which was my last year for college, Atula Vikramasinghe and I shared the best all-round sportsman of the year. And at that year's prize giving, chief guest was Mrs. Sirima Bandaranaika. So it was a very important moment to get the best all-round sportsman award, where we shared it. I shared it with Atula Vikramasinghe, who is now in Canada. And that was a very important moment in my life. I think a teacher that made a lot of contribution in my life was my English and English literature teacher, Mr. A. Karatna. And I think, and also I would say the principal, Mr. S. Veerasinghe, and Mr. Edmund Disanaika. who was also at that time teaching, who was a past cricket captain, and we looked up to Mr. Edmund Disnaikapi. He was an excellent captain, and apparently in 1947, that same year, he beat Royal and St. Thomas's with a very young side. So Mr. Edmund Disnaikapi taught us history, civics, and at that time I think the three people who made a big impact in my life were Mr. Edmund Disnaikapi, Mr. A. Karatna, and also Mr. A. Swegasinghe, our principal. I was not an excellent academic, but more on the fun part of life, going for the parties and then going for the West Indies cricket match. I remember when West Indies toured, and Principal Veerasinghe said nobody should go for this match, and it was played at the Oval, but we went for the match, and we were obviously the day after we were punished for going to see Clive Lloyd play this match. I think it was Clive Lloyd who captained the West Indies side, so it was important for us, even if we had to go through punishment, to go and see the West Indies play at the Oval. There were 3 or 4 of us. There was Tiron Giants, who is no more today. He passed away in Australia, who was one of Sri Lanka's fastest schoolboy cricketers, bowlers in the 70s, early 70s. There was also Mr. Del McAleese, who was a past captain. And 3 or 4 of us, we went for this match, and we all 3 ended up with 6 cuts given by the principal of Wesley. But we had no regrets. We owned up, and that was something that we thought we must go and see for the betterment of our game, to see this all-important West Indies side play at that time in Ceylon, I think. The Wesley side was packed with a lot of burgers. If you remember the 73 side, the 72, 73 side, there was the Achilles, there was the Kearns, there was the Harmers, there were the Solomons. So half that, or more than half the Wesley side were Australian, looked like Australians. They were very fair. That burger comedy brought a lot of colour into college also. My first thing, unfortunately, just to tell you something, that I came from St. Thomas's. I was at Prep. My first cricket was at St. Thomas's Prep when I played for under 12 in the champion side, captained by Ajit Abegunumagan, who later captained Mount Lavinia, the big school. And in that match, the finals were played against St. Peter's. And the Peterite captain was, I think, Dusty Martin, if I remember well. And St. Thomas's beat them. Then when I came to Wesley, I was under 14. The first match we played in that tournament was St. Thomas, and I drew the match for Wesley. And then there was Ranil's father, Ranil Abenayaka's father, or Will, who said, I still remember drawing the match for Wesley, because I held on for about 2 hours playing at Campbell Park, and Ranil's father said, Wesley's gain is St. Thomas's loss. So I said, then he wished me all the best, Puta. You must be here, you're in a good school, and keep your cricket going, because you have a lot of talent. That was what Ranil's father told me. And then it went up from the under 12 at St. Thomas's, then under 14. And then I was in the first 11 side at the age of 16, where I got colours at the age of 16. And at that time, I think still Wesley is a college that you have to earn your colours. There is no big match. So there were standards set for bowlers, set for batsmen, set for fielders. And if you didn't attain those standards, you never got colours. So as a bowler at that time, as you all know, we played very little cricket, mainly with the big schools. So it was about 6-7 matches a season. So to gain colours for cricket for bowling, you had to get 5 times, 3 wickets, no 5 wickets 3 times. But that's also 5 plus. And you had to get more than 25 wickets in 5-6 matches, which was at that time quite difficult. A batsman had to gain about 350s and gain 250 runs, gain colours, and there was a set target for a field also. So at the age of 16, I attained this target and got colours. And my best year for Wesley was in 73, which was captained by Oscar Disnaikapi. That was a good side. But I would rate the 72 side a better side, because at that year, in 72, we beat St. Thomas's. That was the last year, if I remember, We beat St. Thomas's playing at Campbell Park, and that side was captained that year, but we had two captains. There was H.A. Carter and Tyrone Jans, who is no more. Today he passed away in Australia about a year back. We had a very good side. I think the Thomian side was captained by Kamal Samarnaik, if I remember right. And it was a good match. And that was the last time, I think, if I remember right, we beat St. Thomas's at Campbell Park. I remember when I came to bat, I was not a known batsman, I was more of a bowler. And at that match, Mr. Edmund Disnaikar put me up in the batting. And first innings I was holding on while Tyrone James on the side was flashing around. And when I got out for a score of about 10 runs or whatever, Tyrone and I put a partnership. And I remember Mr. Edmund Disnaikar, when I came, he said, "You were too slow." But today when I think that little partnership we put, Tyrone and me, was the turning point of that match. Because after I got off, the wickets went off fast. There was a small lead, and then second innings, I think Tyrone Jans ran through St. Thomas's. He was, like I told you earlier, he was that year Sri Lanka school's fastest bowler. I think he also represented Sri Lankan schools when Asita Jayavira captained against Australian visiting team. He played for the Sri Lankan schools in '72. That was a very good side. There were people like, if I remember, Asita from Royal. There was Roy, I think, who played in '72 for St. Peter's, or '71. So there were a lot of people. There was Varnapura Bandula from Nalanda, who is still a very good friend of mine. There was Dilip Mendis from St. Thomas's, Gary Melder from St. Joseph's. That was the crowd that we played cricket. It was a good period where there was no test cricket. People played for the sake of the game. And that was how it was played, in good spirits. There was Royal also, and Ajita Pascual, who we are still good friends. And things worked well, you know. There was a lot of closeness about the game. And still those friendships that we made on the cricket field are still very strong. The Thomian match was a good match, and then in '73, that was my last year. The '73 year was the year I got colours for Wesley. I would have been about 16 plus when I was just over 17. When that year I was about in the first 10 bowlers in Sri Lanka. And as we all know, at that time we played a very few amount of cricket matches. Unlike today, the season is about 15 to 20 matches that school plays. We played about 8, and I think at the end of 8 matches, which one match I was injured, I think I got about 50 odd wickets. And as a schoolboy, I had to get permission from principal to play Sarah Trophy. So I went to the principal's office and said, "Sir, I need a letter from you to play Sarah Trophy for BRC." So he looked at me and said, "Are you going to play for the A division or the B division?" Because at that time Sarah was the A division. I said, "Sir, I've been chosen for the A division." So he gave me the letter. "I wish you all the best." And at that time we played cricket. Cricket was on Saturday, Sunday. The match started on Saturday at 1, and the Sunday match started at 9. We had to buy our lunch. We had to come by bus to the ground, and we played Moors that match. And that was my first match as a schoolboy. And Moors was packed with a lot of Ceylon cricketers like Sharpadi, who opened batting. There was Asghar Ali, who Pete Wright, who opened batting for Ceylon. There was Khalil Ghafoor. There were a lot of Ceylon players in that side. And I remember my captain was Jerry Wouters, who later played for Sri Lanka cricket. I had to open bowling with Anton Benedict. Anton Benedict came from St. Patrick's, Jaffna. And he was a very fast left-arm bowler, and he lives in Paris, and he still maintains good contacts. I travel a lot to France. Anton opened, and I ended up with 6 wickets. And we beat Moors. The first 5 wickets for first 5 balls were 5 wickets. The 6th wicket was dropped by Jayant Amarasinghe, who later played for Sri Lanka. I don't know if Jayanta took that catch, how it would have been rated, whether it would have been a Ceylon record or a world record, I don't know. But The papers I got here show Van Dort gets a hat-trick as a schoolboy, 5 balls, 5 wickets. And that was also another memorable moment in my life. And coming back home, my father was, we were in the railway bungalows. My father, at that time, no one had TV. He said, what happened to the match? So I remember after a day's play, I went upstairs. It was nothing big to me, you know. And then people used to hear the 7:30 sports news on radio. That was the only thing that gave information about cricket or whatever sport. And then he suddenly comes up after hearing the radio and in a very bad mood. So I said, what? You never told me that you have got 5, and I ended up with a little bit of a shot on my face, you know. It upset him that I didn't tell him that I got this. So that is how cricket was played. For us it was for the passion, for the game. Well, of course at that time, if there was test status, maybe my destiny would have been different. So after playing 5 matches for the BRC, every match Anton, Benedict and I ran through. And the paper cutting showed the Pace twins of BRC have run through again. But due to work commitment, I got into travel. At that time, travel industry in the 73 was not very known. It was just getting into what it was today. And I got into the travel industry and then working at different hours, irregular work times. Cricket had to play a second role, and then after 5-6 matches, I told the cricket chairman of the DRC at that time was Mr. Vasanta Rajaratnam. Vasanta, I'm leaving, I don't have time to play, I can't come for practices and it's not good. And that's how the cricket career ended. Then after working in a company, I went to France. I was in France for studies, and today I work for a company called Authenticities. I worked for Walkers for 25 years, and then years ago, about 7 years back, we formed our own company. We are today a company called Authenticities, which we are a DMC. A DMC, as you know, is a destination management company. We work only with certain countries, like countries in Europe, France, Italy, Spain, UK, USA, and the Scandinavian countries, and also Australia. So for the last 8 years, I am there as one of the partners, directors, and we do high-end tourism. We are not in the numbers game. We do quite high-end tourism, where we take clients on helicopters, transfers from here to there. Of course, the budgets are different. And that is why in such a short time, I think the success of Authenticity is tremendous, because we have shown that we are different to others. People are prepared to pay for good services. So that is, I think, the reason Authenticities have done pretty well in such a short time. So in '69 also, that was a champion Wesley side. It was captained by Amresh Rajaratnam, and my cousin was vice captain of that side, Ivan Van Dort, who is now in Australia. That was a side that had the Jagannathan twins, Tyrone Giants, Del McAleese, Roger Hesse. There was Rohan Vikramatne, and that year we beat Royal also at the last ball, playing at Campbell Park, when we beat the Royal side, which was captained by Eardley Weavers, and that Eardley Weavers side won the Royal tournament. That was a champion side. We won the championship trophy that year, and the next champion side that Wesley produced was only in '85, and since '85 Wesley has not produced a champion side. That '85 side was captained by Mailvaganam Ganesh. Yeah, then playing in '73, which was my best year. I remember the match was played here and we nearly beat St. Peter's. They had a wicket or two that we had to take, and time saved St. Peter's. That first innings I got 8 for 60, and in the second innings St. Peter's were tottering, with about 7 or 8 down, I had got 8 wickets. In the second innings 5 wickets. So I ended up with a match bag of 13, which I think that year in schools cricket was the biggest match bag, one of the biggest match bags, 13 in a match. Then I got most often 5 wickets against St. Thomas's, Trinity. Then the Josephian match I had, I think if I remember right, 4 wickets, and I ended up with about 45 or 50 wickets after playing about 7 or 8 matches that year for college. And that was the year I got colours. I was also chosen when I was playing for BRC. I was a trialist for the under 25. When there was a tournament, the Ali Bhutto Trophy, and the club nominated my name, but unfortunately, being a trialist for that first tournament organized by the board, with the board of Pakistan, work got in between, and that was the end of my cricket career. So after about 5 matches for BRC, I had to give up cricket due to different workload, irregular work times, and that is what that changed my cricket career to the travel trade. Rugby I played 2 years for college. My first captain was Tariq Bongzo, who was a good captain, and then that team was, if I remember right, there was Anand Pereira, Iqbal Musafir, who later played for CR and captain CR, and my next year's captain was Iqbal Musafir, who now resides in Australia. And that side was also, at that time Wesley didn't have top rugby sides, we were average. And the beginning of Wesley's turnaround was when, I think in the 80s, when Mr. Sivendran, who was a DIG, came to coach Wesley, who was old pre-tried. That was the turning point in Wesley's rugby. Then came Sanat Matis, who is still a good friend of mine. And Sanat really did a 360 turn for Wesley rugby, and since Sanat's stint at college, Wesley rugby today is a force to reckon with, because Wesley, if you know, has been, it has won 1 presidential trophy, and it has come 3 times runners-up in the presidential trophy, and I think in the league, Wesley's best result was 3rd or 4th, and it has been always having good sides. And even this year, the finals between St. Peter's and Wesley was a nail-hanger, nail-biting match. And even the Beatrice said, you all deserve to win, because the side was so good and they played good rugby, and that's how I think Wesley rugby has grown. And one person, I think the group that also helped Wesley rugby was the class of 90s, and they are still involved in Wesley rugby. And there is also Captain Naveen De Silva, who is the chairman of the committee of rugby. There is Intisham Moideen, who has been always behind Wesley rugby. He was a college chap who was junior to me, but always very passionate about the game. And there's a good backing, and today when Wesley plays, you will see easily about 2,000-3,000 spectators coming for Wesley rugby. And it has grown since the 80s to what it is today. Yeah, my involvement first with college has been from the day I left college. You know, working, anyway I had this passion for college to do something, give back something. And then 3 years back, people asked me to become the president of the OBU, which was something that I never wanted. But then they said, you can bring a change. So that change came. Normally a president of the OBU is there for 2 years. But I did 3 because these chaps didn't want me to go, and they're still asking me to consider. So I said, no, the next president will bring a different color, he'll bring a different dimension into the OBU. And since I took over, we had a dynamic committee. I must thank that committee. So you can't do things alone. And one thing that made us, I think, do well was transparency. Everything was very transparent. Monies that came from overseas, it was accounted. Photographs were taken. Principal was invited. It went into the OBU accounts. And we did a lot of projects, like the furniture project. In 3 years, I think we have done over 1,500 desk and chairs. Superb desk and chairs, wooden. You can't carry a chair. It's all handmade. I think Wesley was one of the first schools that started smart board projects. Even about 3 days back, we donated 4 smart boards, and I think altogether different OBUs have given the college so many smart boards. We did the water purifiers for the classrooms, we did the sick room, we did the labs. We are on the verge of doing the ventilation for the college hall, which is a unique building. The college hall, if you go and see Wesley's hall, is one of the best halls in Sri Lanka. It has that ceiling brought from Burma, which is Burma teak. If you see that, it's a masterpiece, the college hall. So we want to bring the ventilation into it. Then we did teacher programs for teachers, students and also parents, where we brought them, and this year's A-level results show that there is a big improvement. We had 2 island rankings, 18 eligible to get into university this time. So all the projects that we did has borne fruit. And also I must thank the principal, who is very dynamic, Mr. Fernando, who is an old boy, and without his support nothing could go right, because you need the support of the principal. And Wesley is coming to the 150 years in another 3 years time or 4 years, and we have a big project of the sports complex which will cost us over 150 million rupees. So there again OBU with different OBU branches overseas will get involved with the different bodies in college to put this up for future generations of Wesleyans. And that is what we have been doing. Attendance at OBU meetings have been excellent. We have done other projects too, like helping students, funding students, OBU, people who can't pay their monies into college, giving money for sick boys who were needing help for medical. Then we did part of the financing of the front college wall, which you pass college, you will see a beautiful wall today. And there are a lot of projects lined up. We did the chemistry lab and all these labs and all that have been finished. We did the library with computers and all that. We brought in books to the junior school, books to the senior school, smart games with tables and chairs, chess. All that the OBU has done in a very constructive way, giving it an all-round picture. That students, we have 3,200 students today at Wesley, 3 campuses. One is the main, as you know, is in Borella. The junior school is in Havelock Town, and we have another junior school in Quadrangle, Tampala. So these are colleges now 3,200 students. So what we did is for the benefit of the students, because I remember when I was a student, we had difficulties having even a good cricket bat. We gave the last year's captain, who did very well, Kavindia, we presented him a bat. Rugby we have funded a lot. Whatever cricket is needed, we fund whenever there is demand. Because what I felt as a student, we have the facilities that students have today. Sometimes, we had to share a bat, we had to share our gloves. Today, if you see the cricketers, they have everything. And so what I didn't get, I thought I should, as the OBU president, see that 3,000 students have a good desk and chair to study, and things would improve from there, the academics would improve, and they would be better citizens for the country and to the world. My parents were both government servants. My mother was a teacher, father in the railway, and they migrated to Australia in '84 after the problems in Sri Lanka. And I have 2 brothers who also played for Wesley, and both of them reside in Australia. My mother unfortunately passed away in '86 in Australia. I go often to Australia to see them, or they come here. My father is today now 90, they live in Sydney. And we had a very happy family life. We were 3 boys. So we grew up in that sense, in the railway, where I told you we grew up in Mount Mary. There was Bernard Vijetu, who captained St. Peter's. There was Amita Di Costa, who played for Sri Lanka. He was in the railway. I mean to say his wife was from the railway. So we had a lot of cricketers from all over in that railway community, from different backgrounds, different schools. And we used to play cricket. And we had a very happy life. I would say as a youngster, parents did the maximum what they could do for us, and I have happy memories.
Yeah, moving on from school life, corporate life.
Then I was in France. I did my studies in French. I think I'm one of the few people in Sri Lanka who speak and write French, because I did French history and I did French language in a city called Rouen, Rouen, and it was the turning point. My going to France, because I worked for a French company in Sri Lanka called Wesley. That was my first job, like I told you, and that company only worked with French. So people told me the only way you can progress in your life is learn French. So I went to France at that time. It was a big gamble. I always took gambles in my life, and then studied. And then when the war took place in '83, I came back. I thought I should come back. And people in France said, "Why are you going? You're going to a burning country." So I said, "No, this is the time I should go back to my country." I had qualified also, so French, I had my papers, and I was proud to come back. And then, thanks to another Wesley connection, who was the MD at Walker's, he took me to Walker's tours, and there for about 25 years I worked at Walker's. And then 7 years back, 3 others who were also at Walker's tours, we formed a company called Authenticities Private Limited, and today we have a staff of about 44, and we do high-end tourism. And I think we have shown in a short time that Authenticities does things in a very different way. We have 4 different backgrounds. Our chairman is Shanita, who was a good rugby player for the CRNFC. If you remember Shanita Fernando, he was an Anthonian. Then one of the other directors is Dilshad from DS Senanayaka. Then there is Amila Anukur from Kingswood, and myself from Wesley. So it's a good mix, and we do things in a very different way. Challenges are always there. Even the problems in April, we had a lot of issues, but I think we were one of the few companies that did not send anyone home. We kept all our staff, and we always thought when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And now I think tourism is getting better. There is marked improvement in arrivals, and that's how it works. Now I'm married to Priyanti Senaratna, who was also at St. Peter's, who taught the choir there for many years, and now she's the choral director for St. Bridget's. And she comes from a very musical background, the Mahalona family, as you know. And we have one daughter, Mariela. Priyanti, as you know, was also the person who wrote the music for Pope Francis's visit to Sri Lanka. And my daughter, Mariela, was the girl who welcomed the Pope at the airport in 2015, and she sang that song for the Pope at the airport. And she is still in St. Bridget's doing her A-levels this year, and she was the lead of the choir for St. Bridget's for the last 2 years, and they have done many productions like the carol service, and I think that choir came second in the world competition that was organized about a year back. My parting message to any old boys union is that when we come to the OBU, we come to serve. I think that message should be second, where we have to give back to college. The college gave us so much, and that we should know the meaning of serving. That when we get into an OBU or a committee like the OBU, in any part, any school, that we have to give back, and it's time to give back. And I think in that sense, with strong OBUs, things will improve a lot for schools. We can play a vital part where discipline is concerned. Even in this year's rugby season, last year's rugby season, the principal called me and said, "Wilhelm, we'll do a joint letter from the principal and the OBU president where violence at rugby matches should not take place." And we did a letter, and it showed that last year Wesley had no problems. I think it was one of the best schools that played good rugby without any issues, where the OBU played a vital part with the principal to stop all these unnecessary problems that take place at rugby matches. So I think those are things we can also change a lot where discipline is concerned. And when you have this discipline, it's good also for the country later on. It's a circle that what is lacking today is discipline in the country. And this is what we should look into.